So often the focus on a couple's relationship following brain injury kind of emerges from years 1 to 2 post-injury, extending for the next 5 or 10 years. And that's after the physical recovery and the return to independence of the survivor has been maximised. And then the couple is there at home thinking, well, what about us? Particularly if a couple is kind of dealing with senses of alienness or unfamiliarity, like I don't recognise who this person is anymore. And that could be from both the survivor or the non-injured partner. So then the kind of more kind of complex psychological and relational needs of survivors and their partners become more prevalent, and that's where often brain injury services are less equipped to respond in a way that they did in supporting the independence of the survivor themselves. So the kind of support that can be offered, and this may have to be found between the brain injury clinician and a relationship or couples counsellor, because there's kind of a loss of complete knowledge between the two. On the one hand, brain injury services are not equipped to deal with supporting relationships at the minute, and on the other hand, couples therapists or counsellors or psychosexual therapists have less experience of brain injury. So often it requires some joint conversations or kind of some trial and error to find a therapist who's willing to learn about the impact of brain injury. And there are some resources provided in the links connected to this video that provide information on relationships, sexuality after brain injury. And do check out my other video series on sexuality for both survivors and couples. So finding support from these kind of different sources can be difficult, but where possible, finding a way to have a conversation between the partner and survivor and find ways of getting back onto the same page. And all couples argue. It's what couples argue about, and finding ways to make up and get back to each other. That can be the challenging bit after a brain injury, getting on the same page, as I explored previously. For some couples, that doesn't work out, that's not enough, and the gap has just grown too large. Maybe the immediate impact of a brain injury itself has had too great a toll on a relationship, and couples have gone from having an equal relationship to the non-injured partner being a physical carer or toileter, and coming back to a relationship based on equality and equal roles can be too big a step. For other people, there are some vulnerabilities in the couple's relationship before the injury that have kind of been opened up like wounds by the injury itself, and uncertainties and mixed feelings about each other become more powerful, coupled with the consequences of brain injury for thinking, behaviour, communication. In this situation, there may be just too much hurt and disconnection for a couple to feel that they need, that it's worth making the journey back towards each other. And so for many couples, the need then is to forge a new life, maybe living under the same roof, but no longer as romantic partners, or to move away and separate in a more physical sense. In both those scenarios, those are necessary decisions, but painful ones, and in the same way that brain injury services should develop to support couples' relationships as much as possible, there should be emotional support for both survivors and partners to deal with heartbreak, deals with feelings of disconnection, isolation, loss, and pain at losing each other, losing the relationship, losing the person who perhaps was the closest person in your life before and changed now following the injury. So support should be there, and I think the experience of a relationship breakdown following a brain injury is not comparable to a relationship breakdown for many couples in everyday life. So having a specialist kind of service and having a therapist who's orientated to the unique impact of brain injury is important to support both survivors and their partners to cope with changes that may be too much to manage in terms of keeping the relationship going.